Okay, welcome folks to another episode of the Bishy PE Podcast. I'm absolutely delighted to say that we're joined by Glasgow Rocks head coach and current player, Gareth Murray. Gareth, how you doing, mate?
I'm good, thank you very much. Thanks for having me on. I'm excited to do this.
Brilliant. You're our first basketball representative, so we're delighted that it's you that's joining us, mate.
Thank you very much for having me.
We're also joined by Mr. Johnson. Mr. Johnson, how you doing? How's the legs after the Bishy beats and walk over the weekend?
I think they've just about recovered.
Uh-huh.
I'm an old man now, so it takes me a wee bit longer to ease them out.
Yeah. And as you'll probably have guessed, Mr. Irvin isn't here. He's away doing some referee duties and doing other bits and bobs, so hopefully he'll be back with us next week. It's probably a good thing he's not here, Mr. Johnson.
Aye, definitely.
Right, Gareth, anyway, so I'm going to start us off. We really want to find an insight into your school career and kind of what that was like. How did you find it? Did you stay on to 4th, 5th or 6th year? What was your like?
So I went to Arbroath. I grew up in Arbroath. Went to Arbroath High School. I stayed on till 6th year. I was actually contemplating leaving in 5th year. Going to college in Dundee College and studying sports coaching or something along those lines. But I actually decided to stay on for 6 years to do a couple more hires, and decided that it's probably best that I stay in high school right now and continue playing basketball at the time, which was my main focus. Mm-hmm. My whole goal was try to get to America and get to American high school. So staying another year at school actually helped me figure out the best way to get to America, to be honest with you. I wasn't really exactly sure at the time how it was going about, because you got to think this is back in 2002, 2003 type of time like this. So it's a good few years ago now. I wasn't exactly sure how to get there. Luckily, my basketball coach, and he was the head of PE at the time, John Grant, he got in contact with a company called Flag, and it's still going now, and he's one of the head guys, the Scottish rep for Flag Foreign Links around the globe, and they're sending kids to America in high schools pretty regular. Obviously there's a lot of little different things going on right now, but previously I was me and this other guy from the school, David, we both went to American high school straight after finishing our 6th year of high school in Arbroath. So school was good. I mean, I used it basically for basketball. Education was a side note for me, I'll be honest. It was a side note, but it's the older you get, you realise how much more how you need your education. That's basically what you figure out. So if anybody's listening to this, obviously, I'm not saying don't concentrate on school. Education is the main focus and the main thing, and that's what's going to take you the furthest in your sport as well, because that's how you get into these universities in America and university sport over here as well. So definitely stick with your education. Yeah,
that's a great message. Did you have any particular favourite subjects at school, or any role models? You mentioned obviously the PT there at your school, who's
in terms of favourite subjects, PE obviously was one of them always. PE, got to play sports. I was very much into all sports growing up. I started off with football, moved in a little bit of rugby and tennis, and then basketball became the main focus around about 14 or 15. I kind of cut all the other sports out and really focused on basketball. But PE was probably the main one. I didn't mind English too bad. Maths I couldn't stand. Now the more I get old, geography, I'm more interested in geography and a little bit of history now than I was in school. But I'm really into geography and that type of, I like different countries and seeing different places. So that's one of the things I'm into.
Fair enough. Any influential role models perhaps at school?
There's always guys that are older than you that are playing basketball that you look up to, and you're like, okay, maybe one day I'll be as good as them. In Scottish basketball back then, for me, it was somebody like Jimmy Steele. I don't know if you know, he used to play for the Glasgow Rocks when they were in Edinburgh. He now works at Sports Scotland. He was a basketball at Sports Scotland now. He was very similar position, height, frame, everything. So somebody I looked up to growing up. He's a few years older than me, obviously. But he's somebody that I wouldn't really had influence with me, but I just saw him and thought, okay, this is a guy that I could be like this guy one day.
Yeah.
And now I actually played with him. He was the captain of the Scotland national team in the 2006 Commonwealth Games, and he was the captain. So I did actually get to play alongside him when I was around 21 years old. So I did actually play against him. But that's the only. I've got lots of influences around like coaches and things like that growing up. But as in terms of a player that I looked up to, there's probably the one that stands out the most.
Mm-hmm. Just a side question. Obviously, you mentioned there about 13, 14 was when you started the basketball. Was that always the intention? Did you perhaps have a family member who was big on basketball? Like, where did that come about?
So I was football. That's all I was wanted to play football and that when I was younger. I did some other sports just through PE and that, and I was interested. I played rugby, tennis, but basketball I started when I got to high school. One of my good friends now, he took me along to basketball practice. It was a high school team, and basketball was like John Grant and Keith Ritchie, the PE teachers in the school. They were big on basketball, and we had a good basketball program through the PE department there. And John Grant started the Arbroath Musketeers back in, I think the program started in '96. Or 94, sorry, it started in 94, I think it was. And so they had a big basketball program in Arbroath, and obviously it's a very small town. It was one of the biggest basketball clubs in Scotland at the time. So this is how I got into basketball. It was none of my family played it. My younger brother plays basketball now, but nobody in my family ever played basketball really before. It was just through the actual PE department that had the big influence on basketball.
Brilliant. Yeah.
Basketball at the time. They had all the school teams. They had the National League as well.
Excellent. That was interesting.
Yeah, you mentioned there that you played a lot of different sports. Do you think those other sports or the background in other sports helped your basketball?
Definitely. I think, especially like badminton and tennis, definitely good for footwork, eye-hand coordination, those type of things. I think that like these are like really good for your footwork, your tennis and getting your feet underneath you, behind you, and everything. I think all these things are all these different sports. I don't think at a younger age you should concentrate on one specific sport. Like I've got a young daughter now. When she starts getting older, I won't be like pushing her into here. You need to go play basketball. That's all you're going to get to do. It won't be. I would get into try to do everything. Especially even like when you're a young kid. I'm talking like 5, 6, 7, 8, and getting gymnastics and swimming and all these other things. My daughter's been swimming since she was probably 8 months old. So like, I think all these different sports help you in the long run you find a sport that you really can progress in. And so I think these other ones are really good for you.
Absolutely. Perfect. So my next question then is about your journey into basketball. How did it come about then?
So like I said, I started in Arbroath High School, and then after I went to the trials in the first year of high school, and then eventually, I think it was in second year, I got invited to the National League team, which is basically under 16 National League club basketball, basically. So it was one of the younger ones, 13, I think. I started in National League basketball under 16 level. So then it just goes from there. So I was pretty much playing basketball every single day. You had your high school team, you had your after school practices, you could get at lunch times, and then you had your club training once or twice a week, and you had your games at the weekend. So I was playing a lot of basketball at that age. From there, you start making like the North teams, the regional teams. Tayside team, all these type. Eventually making Scotland team when I was 15 years old for under 16s, under 18s. That's when I really started taking it pretty serious. I was practicing probably 4-5 hours a day. So I would go in the morning time before school. You'd have your lunch time, and then you'd have again after school practice. So I was practicing quite a lot, and then I had the hoop in the back garden as well, playing against my brother. So it was a lot of basketball I was playing. So there, the goal was, at any young age, back then it was always trying to get to America. America was the goal, trying to get to either high school or college, and that was my main focus. How I was going to get there, like I said, I wasn't exactly sure at the time, but luckily John Grant got me into that flag program, and I did an exchange year in Michigan, and I was at a high school called Battle Creek Penfield. High school in Michigan. I went there at times of the year. So it started when I first arrived. The whole focus was like, right, I'm in here. I'm playing basketball. I'm playing basketball, and that's all I'm here for. But at the beginning of the school year, you've only got soccer or American football. So I'm like, right, well, never played American football before. I don't think I'll be able to just pick that up very quickly. So I actually joined the soccer team and ended up being. I hadn't played for a few years, but I ended up being the captain of the team, scoring the most goals. And like the most valuable player for the soccer team, making all city team and all this, and it wasn't something I would like. It helped me make friends. Basically, is why I was there. That's what I used it for, to get to know people and learn about the city and culture. But I was there. I played football or soccer. Then the basketball season starts around November, and that year we had a pretty successful year, one of the most successful years we've had at the school. We had a 17-3 record, so a very good winning record. We actually got put out the first round of like the playoffs, basically, first round of the districts. From there, I got an offer to go. There was a few schools interested in me to stay on and go to college or university, like a junior college and some Division 3 schools as well. So there's like a variety of different schools, and like you've got to understand, this is like American sports is like a big business. There's a lot of players, a lot of people trying to get scholarships, and this is what their focus is on. And so they're looking for guys that they think can do well and progress and benefit from it. All these other different things that go along with trying to get a scholarship. So I had the Division 1 scholarship that I thought I was going to get. Ended up didn't receive it, so the next option was, that I was told by this college, was to go to junior college. And I didn't at the time. I'm brand new to America, don't really know too much about the different college systems. And like I was given from this guide, so I ended up going along the road from Battle Creek, so it wasn't far away. So I ended up going to college there for 2 years. After that, finished college there. I decided, wasn't sure what I was going to do next. Another few offers to stay in college in America, but I thought, all right, I'm coming home. I'm coming back to Arbroath and see where that takes me after that. I wasn't exactly sure what I was going to do. Was I going to get a job? Was I going to go to university? Was I even going to continue playing basketball? I really wasn't sure. And I just happened, one of my friends said, oh, there's a trial for the Glasgow Rocks this Wednesday night at Kelvin Hall in Glasgow. And so I ended up just going along to the trial, and I actually knew one of the coaches. He was assistant coach at the time, and he said, oh, we're having a pre-season tournament in Norway this weekend. Are you able to go? I'm like, yeah, sure. I'm not doing anything, so why not? Let's go along. So they ended up taking me along to the pre-season tournament in Norway, and didn't play the first game. The second game I came on, I think I finished the game with like 10 points. I'm quite happy with myself, and so that night met with the head coach and the owners and that, and they offered me to sign on for the season. And pretty much how it started. It wasn't not everyone's way of doing it. It's obviously lots of different ways of getting picked up by a professional team, but that's basically how I managed to become part of the Glasgow Rocks, basically.
Would you say did you notice a big difference when you went over there in terms of the standard of basketball? Just because there's probably so many more people playing it out there, I'd imagine. Yeah,
well, I was in a small place. I was in the high school I was at was around 700-800 pupils. So it wasn't. They've only got 4 years of high school there, so it wasn't a huge school. Fairly mid-sized school for the actual state. But so many people. There's so many. Every high school team has a basketball. The facilities are so much better. There dedicated training times for when your sport is on. Like there's no, right, you have to go, this is badminton time, you can't practice now. There's dedicated times for basketball practice. And when basketball season is on, it's basketball season. There's nothing else going on. You've got volleyball, and then you've got basketball, and you've got women's basketball as well. But you've got that is what's going on at the time, and so everything is dedicated to that sport for that time of the year, for especially in high school. And then when you get to college, it's even a bigger level. It's like it's huge. It's like everyone's going for a scholarship and all this, and so much money and involved. And You know, I don't know if everybody knows, like to go to American college is not cheap. Very expensive for local people. You're talking like 30,000 a year to go to American college. So getting a scholarship is a big deal. Getting a full ride, a full scholarship to American college or university is a big deal. So everybody's fighting for positions. So you can imagine how competitive it is at a younger age. People are doing extra practice and training with coaches and whatever they can do to try to gain that scholarship. So it's very competitive. A lot. The standard is a lot higher, and there's so many more people playing the sports as well. You got to think about how many people are vying for those spots. So many people, so much competition.
Yeah.
Back to me, is it? Back to me, Scotty. Yeah.
No, I think I lost connection there for a wee bit, so I couldn't really hear any of you. I've got one more question, Gareth, just about when you were growing up in terms of part-time jobs. Did you have any part-time jobs growing up when you were either here or in America?
No, luckily enough, I never actually had to work.
So you've never had a real job?
Never had a real job, no. Basketball has been good to me. It's been good. Yeah. My parents took care of everything. My mum pretty much took care of everything when I was younger, so never had to do any part-time. Honestly, I never had time.
Yeah.
For it. All I did, like, my life was consumed with basketball. Every day, practicing, school practice, and then weekends was games. So there wasn't any time for it. Luckily enough, my mum was good enough and got me everything I needed. So
it's good.
And then it's been good. It's been good to me. I mean, I had a few jobs when I first started professional. I'll be honest, I had a few jobs to keep me going. My very first job was when I worked for Phoenix Honda. They were one of the sponsors at the time, and I worked there for a few weeks. Worked at BHS for a couple of weeks, and then one of our sponsors was Erskine Bridge Hotel, and I actually worked there in the summertime over the summer. I worked there, and even during the season one year, I worked a couple of days a week there at Erskine Bridge Hotel. So I've had a few jobs like that, but basketball, since probably my second or third, pretty much dedicated to that. It's paid me enough in the summer, so I don't have to work all summer. I do some coaching things and that over the summer. It's been good to me.
Fair enough. Gareth, you obviously you spoke about your professional career in a bit of length there, but you also spent some time in France as well. What was that like in terms of the kind of culture, living away from home as well? Obviously, you've had that previously in America. Yeah,
so talking about my professional, I played 5 years for Glasgow Rocks. Yeah. Different names they've had over the years, but basically the Rocks. I played them for 5 years. And then went down to Cheshire for a year, and they were the Cheshire Jets at the time. I went down there for 1 year, one season. I came back up, played for Glasgow for another 3 years. Must have missed the city. And then my whole time was trying to get to Europe, one of these type of countries to play European basketball. Because over there, it's like it's not their main sport always, but they have a lot more resources and there's a little bit more money in the leagues, and they're pretty professional leagues. You know, they ran well. So that was the whole goal, was trying to get over to the league. The basketball is a lot more competitive as well. So I ended up going down to Cheshire for a pre-season. I then got an offer to go to France for a short-term deal, which like a injury replacement. So I went to France for 3 months, and I was over in Vendy-Chalans. It's over in the west coast, the west type side, and right by the beach. So I was there for 3 months. The contract ended. I was looking for another team. Ended up going down to Plymouth for 3 months. So I played a little bit of traveling that year, for only playing for one team for like 8 years. I played for 3 in 1 year that time. Then the following year, I went to France for the whole season. I went to Angers. It's Angers is the spelling, but Angers is how you say it. I went there for the whole season, and at the time, my wife was pregnant, so my wife had a daughter in January. So it was a French system is like a very well run league. So there's different divisions. Obviously, the top league is Pro A, then you've got Pro B, and then there's national third division. It's very equivalent to the standard of the BBL in the UK. So the third league is it's a very competitive league as well. Our coach that was here for Glasgow last year, he was my coach in France at the time, Vincent Lavender. He was the coach over there at the time, and he recruited me to come over there. We had a very young team. I was the oldest guy in the team at 29, so the rest of the guys were average age was around 22. So I was the old guy in the team, trying to keep up with them. So I was a challenge in that, but I was something I really was excited about going to play in France. Obviously, I played 3 months before that, so it was a great opportunity for me. And I actually they offered me to go back again that following year. But like I said, I had a daughter and I had the Commonwealth Games coming up, so I made the decision to come back to Glasgow the following year. Luckily enough, I got to bring the coach over here last season, the end towards the season before, but last season I got him to come over here. So he had the opportunity to see the British League, and he was actually Coach of the Year last year for us in the British League, which is good for him. He's taken a deal back in France, and he's taken 3 of the guys that played with us last year, another Scottish guy, Ali Fraser, one of my good, plus an American point guard and another big French guy we had last year. So they've all gone to France to play with him now. So it was good. It was good for good opportunities for them as well. But my time in France was really good. I wish I didn't have to cut it as short. I would like to have still played out there for a couple more years, but yeah. I enjoyed the time. It's a very good league, very professional. Even though, like I say, it's a third league, it's a very good high. They've got like 60 or 80 professional teams in France, 12 maybe in the UK. So it's very good competitive basketball.
Brilliant. You touched on the Commonwealth Games there. You've represented your country and also Team GB, and then also obviously at a club level. But what sort of highlights? What would your highlights be of your professional career?
In terms of club, say that again.
If you were to pick 1 or 2 highlights, what would they be?
Big 1 or 2 highlights. So Scotland's one of the only players to play for the Commonwealth Games of basketball. So that's quite a big highlight for me. The Commonwealth Games, our 4th place finish last in 2018. That was just the whole team, everything about the whole trip. That's got to be one of my highlights. It was just the way we played basketball, the way the coach got us working together, and just the beating England the very first game, and Cameron was like a well-known basketball powerhouse, and then obviously coming up against Australia and New Zealand, they were going for the gold and silver, so it's a bit different level. But just the whole experience, that's got to be one of my highlights in my career. Was that Commonwealth Games, and then playing for Great Britain as well. That's like something I dreamed of when I was younger. Even when I was younger, when I say younger, I'm still talking like 25, 26, playing against some of the best players in the world. Played against Spain and Germany. Russia, like all these, some of these top guys are playing in the NBA, and I got the opportunity to play against these guys. And that's as a young kid, or even whatever age you want to say, it's still a dream playing against these guys and never like thinking to myself, right, I'm coming from a growth thinking like I'm going to get to play against some of the best players in the world, and I'm going to be on the court playing against them, guarding them, and playing like meaningful minutes. That's like something that I'm quite happy about, to be honest with you. There would be my 2 highlights that's off the top of my head right now, like just playing this type of level of basketball I'm excited about. Now the next challenge I have is something that I always hoped would happen, maybe not this soon, but become a coach of the Rocks. That'd be I was hoping to not continue playing and coach at the same time, but the way things are right now, this is the way it is. But the goal was always to become the coach of the Rocks sometime.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah. Obviously, with highlights, there sometimes becomes some setbacks. Could you tell us perhaps maybe some setbacks you've had throughout your career and how you responded to them?
Two things that stand out in my mind right now. So when I was telling you about I was in France, my daughter was born, and it was over Christmas time. I went back to France I went back to Scotland, to Glasgow for my daughter for Christmas and for my daughter being born. And the coach, Vincent, he wasn't too happy that I was staying longer than anticipated, because the season was about to tip off again, the second part of the season. So coming back late, he wasn't too impressed. So kind of had a shaky relationship for the next 6 weeks or so. So he really mentally pushed me to the edge, but I stuck through it. And so, like, getting through a challenge like that, where your wife and daughter are at home in Glasgow, and you're in France, and the coach is giving you a hard time, and you're just like pushing your body to the limit and your mind, and like trying to get through that. And in the long run, it was worth it, but it was a challenge at the time. Trying to get through that. Eventually, it actually came out to France and visit me, so that was good for a few weeks. But getting through that whole season was a challenge. And then a couple of years ago, I got injured. We were doing pretty well for the team, and I hurt my back probably in like January time. And I tried to keep playing. I just kept on pushing myself, and then eventually, towards like March, it got really bad, and so I had to kind of sit out. And having to sit out and watch for a few games was tough. And then I tried to push myself again, trying to get back in. And then eventually, towards the end of the season, I could barely move. So I ended up having to get 2 injections in my back. This big, huge needle, steroid injection, cortisone injection in my back. So that was kind of challenging. Coming back from that that's only, knock on wood, the only real serious injuries I've had in my career. So that's been quite good with that. Had some, obviously, the small injuries, but nothing real serious. But that was mostly a difficult one. But from that injury, actually, must have been maybe 4 or 5 months later, I went to Eurobasket in Turkey. Mm-hmm. And playing for Great Britain again, and once again playing against these top teams and playing against some of the best players in the world. So actually, getting back from that injury was quite good. It was successful in the end. It's the only 2 things I really think about.
I don't know if this is true, but I'm sure I read this somewhere that the NBA, like the average career is something like 3 or 4 years. Is that right?
It could be, yeah. There's obviously guys that play a lot longer, but probably could be around that time. There's obviously guys that will last a lot longer, but the NBA is tough business. They only take, I think it's 420 players in a season, so there's a lot of guys that could come in and out. But some guys move on after the NBA. They move on to Europe. So yeah. Playing, it could be a short time span, but most guys that are playing, they're looking to probably retire around the 32, 35 years old, probably.
So is that more just people going in and out? Because when I read it, I just kind of thought about injuries. Like, I thought
no, I think it's more of people coming in and out. There's serious injuries for people, but mainly just people coming in and out. It's just the business. There's so many people trying to vie for that spot,
Yeah.
So it's mainly just the business. You do get there's some serious injuries where people just can't play anymore.
Yeah.
That's the life.
Is that back to me then, Mr. McHugh? Okay, so my next question, Gareth, is about initiation. So, have you ever experienced any initiations within maybe the basketball changing room, or maybe a new club that you've
so one thing we did with the Great Britain team is the only one we really do. The Rocks, we never really had anything like that.
Right.
I can remember. My memory's not good, but the only one that we stuck to was the Great Britain. They have to sing the national anthem after the first the British national, after the I think it's before or after the first game, the first cap, basically. And no matter where we are, so we usually go out for dinner before a game or after a game, and wherever we are, you have to sing the national anthem. Now maybe that's on your own. Maybe there's 4 guys who've got the first cap that night, but that's the only one that really sticks. And then we've stuck to that for a good number of years.
So where were you when you had to sing yours?
Luckily mine was in a nice quiet place. I think there's like 3 or 4 of us. I think we were in a hotel restaurant. It wasn't very busy, but we were actually down in was it Manchester or London the last time, and the guy on his own and we were in this big, huge, open restaurant where like the Big Eat in Glasgow. You got lots of different restaurants. There's a big one of them, and everyone's just sitting around, and he has to sing it in front. He actually did a really good job. It was really good. So it was probably, I'd say there was probably about a couple hundred people there, and he's had to stand up on top of the stairs and sing to everybody in the place. But that's good. That's the only ones I can really think of that we do. I don't. The Scotland stuff was, I can't think of anything we did, because the thing with the Scotland is never every year or every 6 months or every 2. You don't really celebrate the caps as much as you do with Great Britain.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense.
And the Rocks, so many people coming in. Usually get the rookies to like sing happy birthday to whoever's birthday it is or something like that, and be the other ones that come up. But obviously rookies have to carry the bags for everybody and take care of the basketballs and that, but that's just standard.
Yeah.
So you touched on the kind of mental side of basketball, or when you were travelling back and forth, and the kind of the mental strain it was putting on you. So my next question is about mental preparation for games. Do you have anything that you kind of go through mentally when you're preparing for a big game?
Yes and no. They're like superstitions, but they're not.
Right.
I'm not very superstitious, but I am. I've got to put my left sock on first. I've got to tie my left lace first. You got to stretch the same way every time. Right. Things like that. But
that sounds pretty superstitious.
I'm not superstitious though. Only things like that, really. Mentally focused, like you think about. You usually have video before the game, not maybe the day before the game. So you kind of think about the plays. Think about what the coaches talked about, how you're going to defend a certain player, how you have to defend certain plays. That's the mental side of it that you're thinking about. Maybe some people think about it more than others, and that's their thing. But that's only the mental real side of it. Focus on what you actually have to do. But that's all been drilled in you throughout the week, most of the time, of how you're going to run certain plays. It might be like a play that you run regularly, but the coaches switched it about a little bit and said, in this situation, you're doing this, like the different X's and O's of a play. Focusing on your opponents, what your goals are, and the coach usually says that before the game. You have a board in the locker room that will say, "This is our keys to the game," etc. You're focusing on them, and then my non-superstitions, where your socks and your shoes and stretches and all this type of stuff. Other than that, I don't listen to music. Maybe in the locker room there's music on, but I don't put headphones on or listen to a certain song. Sometimes sit in my car before I go into the game and think about things, but that's as far as it goes for me. I don't have to eat a certain food or eat a certain time before it, whatever. None of those type of things. And this is just me personally. Lots of people have different things. I've seen some crazy stuff, and they have to do certain things a certain way, and they have to eat at a certain time, and certain food they have to eat. There's lots of different people have different things going on, but that's mine.
The reason we've asked that question is because we teach like visualization is something that can help develop your performance when we're talking about our higher classes. So we just kind of wanted to get an idea of professional athletes like yourself, and if you're putting this into practice. Yeah,
I mean, like I say, it's more of the X's and O's that I really think about, of like how the plays and tactical. Do you see yourself coming down the lane and dunking on 3 people? Like, you visualize it, but is it going to happen? Like, like these type of things. It's your imagination, but it could happen. It could happen. That's.
So my next question is about the teams that you've been involved in. So you've played for so many really successful teams. You've played against some very successful teams. What do you feel makes a really successful team?
Previously, I would have said you don't have to get on with the person off the court to be a good team. And I still kind of stick with that. But you all have to have the same goal.
Yeah.
And that is, you have to, no matter what your plan for the future is, if that's going to play in a higher league, if you want to go somewhere else and make more money, whatever it is, your individual goals, but you still have to stick with the team goal.
Yeah.
And I just sent that to the players last week, saying, look, everyone has aspirations to go everywhere else or move on to bigger and better things. That's understandable. That's the way it is. That's life, and that's what you're trying to do in your career. That's your goal. But while you're here, team comes first on everything. Team comes first on everything. So everyone has to have the ultimate goal at the end of the day, and that's to win. So you have to do whatever it takes. And if the coach is asking you to do this type of thing, it might not be what you think is the best thing to do all the time. But at the end of the day, the coach is there to be successful and make the team win. Might not be the same line as what each individual player thinks, but at the end of the day, you've got to think about the teammates. There's a lot of players make a lot of sacrifices to come and play from overseas or playing in different from different backgrounds and all these different things. But if everybody is on the same page and on this, you've got to sacrifice for the team and for each individual, then usually teams are pretty successful.
Yeah.
Excellent answer. Yeah, that's really good. My next question is taking us into obviously your coaching side now, Gareth, and I know it's a role that you've just taken on quite recently. But how are you finding the balance between that player-coach role, perhaps even dealing with players that were previously your teammates who are now...
Yeah, so like I said, we've might have been previously before the start of this, we actually haven't started practicing yet as a team with all the different restrictions going on and indoor sports and being able to open facilities.
Yeah.
All these different things. And actually, some of the guys have arrived, but we actually can't get on the court yet. Some of them are quarantined. Some of them we're not able to actually practice physical basketball right now. We can individually, you use your own basketball. You got to keep your social distance and all this type of thing. So we actually haven't had an opportunity to actually play and coach at the same time yet. I was involved when Sterling Davis was a coach. I was a player at the time. He was a player coach. And try to see how he balanced things. There's been a couple of player coaches in the league before, and I don't know how I'm going to handle it right now. It's the honest answer. I don't know. Am I going to play 30 minutes? I'm the coach now. I can play as much as I want. Am I going to be that guy, or am I going to be right? I want to sit back and watch and let these guys do the thing, and then if I need to make a change, I'll step in and help and do things that. Am I going to be the guy that's shouting at you crazy and going mental? Maybe, I don't know. Previously, yes, as a coach. Am I going to be the guy that understands the different scenarios that are going on? Yes, because I've been there before. I understand that I'll be more player-focused, player-based, obviously because I'm still playing. So I'll take an understanding from that. But the actual physically playing and coaching at the same time, I've not done it yet. So I don't know how that'll go.
Keep their eyes peeled.
Yes, exactly.
Back to you, Mr. Johnson.
So, what advice then would you have for any young aspiring basketballers or athletes?
Basketball players, I mean, like I was telling you before, if you want to get better, something happens for everything, really. If you want to get better or something, you have to practice it. And you have to practice it correctly. It's all good going to the court and playing and doing different things. But if you actually have a plan and like, okay, I'm going to get better at doing this specific thing. So whether that is for basketball, dribbling your left hand or shooting layups with your left hand, or I want to be really fast and crossing somebody over, or whatever it is, I want to get a better outside shot. You have to practice it. And that goes with every sport. You have to put in the time. You have to put in the time to practice that properly. Whatever your sport is, it could be swimming, could be gymnastics, could be dancing, whatever it is. The people that are successful at those things dedicate themselves to that, and whatever it takes. If that's down to nutrition, if that's down to extra hours practicing that thing, it's all combined together. But to me, the biggest thing is if you want to get better, you have to practice it. You can only practice it. But definitely set yourself goals of what you want to work on. So there's, okay, I'm going to put more hours playing basketball. So I'm on the court for 3 hours. But what did you actually achieve in those 3 hours? Did you actually have a specific plan of how you're going to get better at something? I know you guys as teachers will have certain, I can't remember them in my time now, but certain things that you have in place of different steps that you take to get better at something. But I always, when I'm coaching up from whatever they want to get to, but they always have a goal of what they want to get out of it in the end.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Gareth, I've got a wee kind of question on the side here. I told my dad we were interviewing Gareth Murray from the Glasgow Rocks. He said, "Is that the guy with the beard?" Right? where does the inspiration come with the beard? Just the interest.
I actually don't know. So the beard, I eventually could grow one, and then I cut it one time. So when I was in Plymouth, so I was in France, for the 3 months, and I started growing my beard, and I was like, "Yeah, this looks alright." I keep growing it a little bit. Then one day I was in Plymouth, I was like, "I've had enough of this beard. I'm going to shave it." Shaved it all off completely, and that was the last time I ever shaved. 2015 was that? 15, 16, something like that.
Wow.
Something around that time, and then I just let it grow. And now I get it trimmed every time I get a haircut. Well, right now I'm not allowed to get it trimmed because I'm not allowed to touch the beard, but usually I get it trimmed every time I get a haircut. But there's nothing actually behind it. I just...
None of your superstitions,
No, none of that. There's no strength in my beard, none of that stuff. I just let it grow now. And so now you can't, I just let it go. Can't cut it now. That's the goal, was to get it down to my chest, and now it touched my chest. I'm just going to let it keep going. Actually, I don't think it's actually grown in a wee while because I've not been getting it trimmed, you know.
Fair enough. Okay, right, Gareth, your finisher. If you were to create your own starting five of basketball players, past or present, who would they be and why? Sorry, did you hear me there? No,
I missed it.
Sorry, if you were to create your own starting five of basketball players, past and present, who would they be and why?
So is that Glasgow Rocks or the whole world?
Any five you want.
I mean, I'm going to go with obviously NBA because it's the best players in the world, and so my first one obviously would be Michael Jordan, LeBron James, Shaquille O'Neal, Kobe Bryant, and the last one's always the hardest one for me. I never know. See, to make a proper team, to make a proper team, you have to find a guy that's willing to do everything for your team, and I think that comes down to the point guard. So this might be a crazy pick if other people are interested in this type of thing, but I'm going somebody like Steve Nash. I don't know if you know who Steve Nash is. He's now become the Brooklyn Nets head coach.
Yeah.
He is, like, to me, the ultimate point guard. And there's lots of guys that have lots of skills and can do lots of different things. But to me, he's just like the overall guy that would bring that whole team together. That would be rounding out my... And these are just the five best players, I think. They're not all necessarily the same position. They are the same position, etc. But these are the guys that I would pick for my team.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Good finish off. Listen, Gareth, thanks very much for joining us today. We really do appreciate it. We wish you all the very best in your new role as a player coach.
Thank you very much.
Maybe get you on in a year's time. You can reevaluate that.
See how I am. See if I've got any beard left. I might have pulled out and my hair might have fallen out, or it might just be grey. Who knows?
Brilliant. For those of you that are watching, obviously, as you know, per usual, you can access this latest podcast episode on YouTube and continue to check our Bishy PE Podcast Twitter page for any more updates. Cheers, guys. Take care. See you later.
Thanks, Gareth. Cheers.
Thank you.